At approximately 10:42 p.m., according to court documents and public reporting, federal agents say they had already spent months building a case. But rewind the tape. Start at the moment social media is going crazy. Phones lighting up, group chats exploding, fans are shocked. Headlines claiming there may be a piece of evidence the feds never emphasized publicly, an alleged recording tied to the killing. Let that sink in. Now pause on that word, alleged. Because here's what nobody is telling you. There is a major difference between what prosecutors allege, what court documents state, what bloggers speculate, and what has actually been proven in court. And in this story, that difference may be everything. Picture the cold open, federal paperwork moving across a desk, a sealed filing, a defense team reviewing discovery. A mother still grieving a son, an artist at the center of a billion-dollar music ecosystem facing accusations that could reshape not just a case, but an entire corner of hip-hop. According to the October 25th, 2024 Justice Department announcement, prosecutors allege Durk Banks, known publicly as Lil Durk, ordered a murder-for-hire plot tied to the August 19th, 2022 Los Angeles shooting that killed Saviaya Robinson. Durk has pleaded not guilty, and he remains presumed innocent unless proven guilty. But then came whispers. Sources close to the situation say defense watchers began focusing on something else. Not the flights, not the credit card records, not the rental cars, not even the alleged travel coordination, a recording. Some online commentators claim there may be audio, digital evidence, or intercepted communications people believe connect the dots in ways the public narrative never fully explained. Nothing is confirmed. Court filings discussed publicly have centered more clearly on travel records, financial links, and alleged communications, not any verified public secret recording as confirmed fact. That distinction matters. Now think about the power angle. If a major artist sits at the center of label economics, publishing, touring revenue, and a larger street to corporate pipeline, is this only a criminal case? Or is it also about power, leverage, and what happens when federal pressure collides with hip-hop money? And then there's the emotional angle. Somewhere beyond the blogs, a family is still living with August 19th, 2022. So the question that hangs over everything is simple. Point. If the evidence everyone keeps talking about was never really the evidence people thought it was, then what exactly are fans connecting? And what are the feds actually relying on? Before federal headlines, before prosecutors allege there were connections hidden in plain sight, rewind the tape to the rise. Long before court documents, social media speculation, and unconfirmed reports began circulating, there was a story about ambition, survival, and the kind of pressure that comes when music, street reputation, and business start colliding. In Chicago, particularly on the South Side, the environment that shaped Lil Durk was already being documented in lyrics years before any federal narrative emerged. By the early 2000s, fans believe his music was not just entertainment, but a running diary of trauma, loyalty, and consequences. Hero, think about the timeline. Around 2013 and 2014, as streaming transformed hip-hop into a digital gold rush, labels were no longer just signing artists. They were investing in ecosystems. Management companies, distributors, promoters, and even private security networks all became part of the machine. Here's what nobody is telling you. When an artist becomes a brand, every friendship, every feud, every alliance can carry business implications. By 2018, according to public reporting, Durk's career had entered a new phase. Major collaborations, rising tour revenue, and industry relationships positioned him beyond regional fame. Sources close to the situation have long suggested that success brought new scrutiny, not just from rivals, but from institutions. Let that sink in. As revenue increases, so does surveillance, contractual pressure, and public attention. Fans are shocked when they realize many conflicts often discussed online may also unfold against a backdrop of insurance policies, performance guarantees, publishing splits, and federal interest. Social media is saying certain relationships later examined in court filings may have roots much earlier than people assumed. Nothing is confirmed beyond what paperwork states, but follow the paperwork and a pattern begins to emerge. At the same time, the human story was moving in a very different direction. Behind the platinum records and viral moments was a son, a father, a man who had repeatedly spoken about loss. The emotional anchor many overlook is family. Around this period, fans often pointed to posts involving his mother and children as reminders that fame did not erase personal grief. And one old message shared across fan pages, allegedly reposted years later, was interpreted by supporters as a warning about how success can isolate people. Emotions ran high because audiences saw not just a rapper, but a person trying to carry trauma trauma while building an empire. That matters, because every later allegation lands differently when viewed through that lens. Meanwhile, on the industry side, power dynamics were shifting fast. Around 2020, as drill music gained global commercial influence, the stakes grew larger. Labels were chasing the sound, streaming platforms were profiting, promoters were booking increasingly lucrative appearances. According to sources, some viewed these rising artists as cultural leaders. Others, critics say, viewed them as liabilities. People are divided on whether that tension contributed to intensified scrutiny, but fans believe warning signs were visible. Rewind the tape and look at interviews, deleted posts, and public tension discussed online. Think about the timeline. Public feuds were often treated as entertainment, but some observers argue they may have been early signals of something more serious brewing beneath the surface. Then there were the details people allegedly ignored: travel patterns, security concerns, associates appearing in social media posts one month and disappearing from public view the next. Unconfirmed reports suggest conversations later referenced by internet commentators may have originated years before any federal case. Court documents state certain events under scrutiny did not emerge in isolation. Prosecutors allege broader connections existed, while defense perspectives have consistently emphasized that allegations are not convictions. That distinction matters. Nothing is confirmed simply because social media is going crazy. Verified facts come from records. Allegations come from accusations. And separating those two is where real investigative storytelling begins. There is also a moment many fans keep revisiting: a late-night Instagram live, often referenced in online discussions, where supporters claim the energy felt different. Some interpreted guarded language as ordinary caution. Others now view it as foreshadowing. According to sources, even small moments like that have been re-examined through a much darker lens. Let that sink in. What once looked routine can later appear loaded with meaning when people start connecting dots backward. That is how narratives form, sometimes accurately, sometimes unfairly. And then comes the rise of another pressure rarely discussed openly: the collision between street loyalty and corporate obligation. Here's what nobody is telling you: when millions are attached to touring, publishing, and brand partnerships, conflict is no longer personal alone. It can become financial, it can become political, it can attract actors far beyond music. Fans believe this is where the story changed, not with one dramatic incident, but with quiet escalations hidden in plain sight. A contract here, a public feud there, a legal filing most people never read. Follow the paperwork. By the time later events placed everything under a microscope. Many believe the seeds were already planted years earlier. The rise was never just about music, it was about ambition under pressure, relationships under strain, and warning signs buried inside fame. And the question hanging over everything is this: if the clues were visible all along, why did so few people connect them before the federal spotlight arrived? Rewind the tape to August 19th, 2022. According to prosecutors, this is where the story moved from tension and speculation into the center of a criminal case. But here's what nobody is telling you: federal cases are rarely built around one dramatic moment alone. They are often built in layers. That night in Los Angeles, according to court documents, investigators allege movements were already underway long before gunfire erupted. Prosecutors alleged travel had been arranged, that individuals had arrived from out of state, and that financial records later became part of the evidence trail. Nothing is confirmed as fact beyond what can be proven in court, and the defense has the right to challenge every allegation. But think about the timeline. Investigators, according to public filings, did not present this as a random act. They allegedly framed it as coordination. First came the alleged digital trail. Court documents, state phone records, and location data became important pieces of the government's theory. In simple terms, prosecutors may use call detail records to argue who communicated with whom and when. That does not automatically prove criminal intent. It is one layer. Then came the rental car allegations. Prosecutors allege vehicles were used in ways tied to surveillance and movement. Follow the paperwork. In conspiracy cases, the government often tries to show a pattern through ordinary things that, when viewed together, they argue become extraordinary. A flight reservation, a credit card charge, a hotel stay, a toll record. Separately, they may appear routine. Together, prosecutors allege they tell a story. Let that sink in. Then came the violence itself. According to public allegations, gunfire erupted near a gas station in Los Angeles, and Xavier Robinson was killed. That fact carries human weight beyond every headline, because while social media is going crazy over theories, a family experienced irreversible loss. Emotions ran high in the community. Fans are shocked not just by the allegations, but by how quickly online online reaction split into competing narratives. Some immediately said prosecutors had connected the dots. Others claimed the case was built on circumstantial evidence. People are divided, and legally, circumstantial evidence does not mean weak evidence. It means indirect evidence used to support an inference. That distinction matters. Now comes the detail many online commentators obsess over, the alleged recording. Social media is saying there may be audio or communications people believe federal authorities never fully emphasized publicly, but nothing is confirmed regarding a hidden bombshell recording serving as the core of the case. Publicly discussed evidence has centered far more clearly on travel, financial links, communications, and surveillance allegations. That has not stopped speculation. Sources close to the situation say some fans believe there is more in discovery than the public has seen. Others believe internet rumors have inflated ordinary evidentiary references into mythology. Here's what nobody is telling you. Sometimes what the internet calls secret evidence is simply misunderstood paperwork. And then the urgency intensified. October the 20th, 24, federal charges made headlines. Prosecutors allege a murder-for-hire conspiracy. That phrase carries enormous weight, so let's explain it simply. Murder for hire in federal terms generally means prosecutors allege someone used payment, promise of value, or coordination to facilitate violence. Alleged is the key word. It is an accusation, not a conviction. The defense can dispute every element, but once that language entered the public record, the reaction exploded. As X posts spread theories by the hour. YouTube channels dissected filings line by line. TikTok legal commentators claimed they found overlooked details. Fans are shocked. Social media is going crazy. And through all of it, the paperwork remained the battlefield. One emotional moment keeps surfacing in public conversation. A memorial post, a grieving family member, a comment asking why internet spectators treat trauma like sport. Let that sink in. Because amid ankle monitor speculation, surveillance theories, and unconfirmed recording rumors, the human cost remained constant. That is the part people often miss when breaking news urgency takes over. And still, major questions remain. Did prosecutors reveal their strongest evidence publicly or hold key pieces for trial? Is the alleged digital trail as strong as the government claims? Or will the defense argue the dots are being connected through assumption rather than proof? Think about the timeline. Follow the paperwork, because what happened in that moment was not just an incident under investigation. It became the center of a legal, cultural, and emotional storm that no one could control once it started. After the headlines, after the court filings, after social media is going crazy over theories about evidence, the fallout begins. And this is where stories often stop feeling like entertainment and start feeling painfully real. Because once prosecutors allege a conspiracy, once names enter federal paperwork, the consequences spread far beyond a courtroom. Families feel it first. According to public reporting, the loss tied to August 19th, 2022 did not end when the news cycle moved on. A mother still grieves. Thus, loved ones still carry the absence. And that emotional reality exists whether every allegation stands or falls in court. Let that sink in. While fans debate timelines and speculate about recordings, somebody still remembers the last phone call, the last message, the silence afterward. That human cost widened as the case intensified. Friends, collaborators, and people once publicly visible suddenly became quieter. Sources close to the situation say some associates distanced themselves, while others showed loyalty. People are divided over what silence means. Some interpret it as strategy, others see fear, others say it means nothing at all. Nothing is confirmed, but in high-profile cases, perception often becomes its own force. Rewind the tape and look at what changed. Public appearances became scrutinized. Lyrics were dissected. Old interviews were reinterpreted. Even deleted tweets and archived Instagram captions became objects of analysis. Fans are shocked by how quickly digital history can transform into a battlefield. Then came the business consequences. Here's what nobody is telling you. When a major artist faces serious allegations, the impact may reach far beyond personal reputation. Touring can be affected. Brand relationships may be reevaluated. Contractual obligations can come under pressure. Industry insiders have long understood that unresolved legal exposure can freeze decisions involving sponsors, promoters, and distribution partners. That does not prove guilt. It reflects risk management. And in a billion-dollar music economy, risk moves money. Think about the timeline. One indictment can trigger reactions in rooms the public never sees. Executives start asking questions. Insurance carriers may ask questions. Lawyers certainly do. That is the power angle hiding beneath the headline. headlines. But fairness matters, so follow the paperwork and separate what is verified from what is alleged. Verified, prosecutors filed charges. Public reporting confirms a not guilty plea. The presumption of innocence remains. Some evidentiary battles, including disputes over lyrics, have reportedly become major points of legal contention. That is documented. Alleged, broader online claims about hidden motives, secret recordings, or undisclosed evidence remain heavily disputed or unconfirmed. Social media often collapses these categories into one chaotic narrative. That is where confusion grows, and that confusion has consequences. There is also the emotional fallout inside communities. Emotions ran high, not only among fans, but among people who saw this story as another chapter in a longer cycle. Some community voices allegedly said the tragedy reflects unresolved trauma inside hip-hop. Others argued federal attention itself has become part of a larger pattern. People are divided. Some believe this is accountability. Others believe it reflects selective scrutiny. Let that sink in, because the fallout is not just legal or personal, it is cultural. One moment keeps surfacing in public reaction. A grieving post from a family member asking for peace instead of speculation. That hit people hard, because suddenly the story stopped being about theories and became about pain. That is the angle many outlets miss. Real people often experience online narratives as a second trauma. Imagine opening your phone and seeing strangers argue about the worst moment of your life as if it were a puzzle to solve. And then there is the fallout for legacy. Fans believe reputations in hip-hop are often shaped as much by accusation as by outcome. That is a hard truth. Even before verdicts, narratives form. Supporters defend, critics condemn, comment sections become informal juries. Here's what nobody is telling you. Sometimes the public reaches conclusions long before courts do. That can affect everything. Careers, relationships, history itself, and still, major questions remain unresolved. Will the prosecution prove what it alleges? Will the defense dismantle the government's theory piece by piece? Will the public ever fully separate rumor from record? Think about the timeline. Follow the paperwork. Because the fallout may not be defined only by what happens in court, but by what this case reveals about grief, power, loyalty, and how quickly a human tragedy can become a cultural battleground. And that may be the deepest consequence of all. Now zoom out, because here's where the story gets bigger than one artist, one indictment, or one rumor about evidence people believe the feds never emphasized. Rewind the tape and think about the pattern. Music rises out of pain. Pain becomes expression. Expression becomes commerce. Commerce attracts power, and power attracts scrutiny. That pattern has played out across hip-hop for decades, but fans believe this case has forced people to look at it in a different way. Here's what nobody is telling you. Some believe the real story may not be whether one alleged recording exists. But what it means that so many people were ready to believe there had to be hidden evidence in the first place. Let that sink in. Think about the timeline. In earlier eras, conflicts stayed local, rumors moved by word of mouth, and legal narratives developed mostly inside courtrooms. Now everything unfolds in real time. A court filing is uploaded, and within hours, social media is going crazy. X threads interpret federal language. YouTube creators analyze discovery rumors. TikTok users claim they have connected dots no one else sees. Fans are shocked, but people are also divided. Some believe this new digital scrutiny creates accountability. Others say it creates confusion because speculation can move faster than facts. Nothing is confirmed simply because it trends. Follow the paperwork. And that may be one of the most important lessons in this entire story. Then comes the industry angle. When artists become institutions, they do not operate in isolation. Labels, publishing companies, touring agencies, streaming platforms, private security, and corporate partners all exist around them. That creates a network of incentives and pressures. Some observers argue cases like this force the industry to confront uncomfortable questions. If music profits from conflict narratives, does the business ever examine how those narratives can escalate in real life? If corporations monetize authenticity, what responsibility do they carry when authenticity is tied to trauma? People are asking these questions more openly now. Sources close to the situation say some insiders believe this moment could reshape how risk is managed around artists in high-pressure environments. Nothing is confirmed, but the questions are growing louder. There is also a broader legal question. Prosecutors increasingly use digital trails, financial records, communications data, and sometimes expressive material to build narratives. Defense teams increasingly challenge how far that should go. Let's explain that simply. A major fight in modern criminal cases is often not just what evidence exists, exists, but how it should be interpreted. Does a lyric reflect art or intent? Does a payment reflect ordinary activity or alleged coordination? Does a pattern prove conspiracy or does it invite assumption? These are not small questions. They may shape future cases far beyond this one. Oh, let that sink in. And then there is the emotional question no one wants to sit with. What does it do to a culture when unresolved allegations become content before they become adjudicated facts? Emotions ran high because many people see a deeper wound underneath all this. Some see generational trauma repeating. Others see a system colliding with a genre it has long struggled to understand. Others believe both can be true at once. People are divided, and maybe that division is itself part of the story. One emotional anchor keeps returning. Families on all sides live with uncertainty. A grieving mother seeks peace. Supporters defend someone they believe in. Children may one day read headlines they did not choose. That is the human weight beneath every theory, and if you lose sight of that, the analysis turns cold. Now return to the question of the alleged recording. Why has that rumor become so powerful? Some fans believe it represents distrust in official narratives. Others think it reflects the internet's need to imagine hidden twists even when paperwork may already tell the main story. Here's what nobody is telling you. Sometimes the most revealing thing is not whether a rumor is true, but why people need it to be true. Think about the timeline. That question opens a much bigger conversation about power, perception, and whether hip-hop is being judged, defended, or misunderstood through overlapping lenses all at once. And still, the biggest questions remain unanswered. Is this case a singular prosecution or part of a larger pattern in how federal power intersects with rap culture? Why? Will this moment force the industry to rethink how conflict is marketed? And will audiences become more careful about separating allegations, verified facts, and internet mythology? Follow the paperwork, rewind the tape, because what this means for hip-hop may not be decided only by a courtroom. It may be decided by how the culture responds when power, pain, profit, and perception collide. And that story may still be unfolding. So where does all this leave us? We started with a question about alleged evidence fans believe may connect dots the public never fully understood. We followed the timeline, we followed the paperwork, and what we found is a story built on verified court allegations, disputed interpretations, emotional loss, industry pressure, and major unanswered questions that still have people divided. Let that sink in. Because right now, 3 questions remain at the center of everything. First, is the evidence the public keeps obsessing over even the evidence prosecutors are actually relying on? Second, can the defense dismantle what prosecutors allege is a coordinated case built through records, surveillance, and digital trails? And third, is this only about one criminal prosecution? Or does it expose something much bigger about power, pressure, and how hip-hop operates under scrutiny? Here's what nobody is telling you. Sometimes the biggest mystery is not hidden inside a secret recording or a sealed filing. Sometimes the biggest mystery is what the public thinks it knows. Rewind the tape. Think about the timeline. Follow the paperwork. And ask yourself, what do you think really happened? Do you believe social media turned speculation into mythology? Or do you think fans may be seeing gaps in the official narrative others are ignoring? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I want to hear where you stand, and be specific. Do you think this case is really about the alleged evidence, the industry politics, or something deeper nobody is talking about? If you made it this far, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more breakdowns where we separate verified facts from allegations, connect the dots, and ask the questions others avoid, because this story may be far from over, and the next twist could change everything.